basketball today, but
Big 12 Media Day was the day.
That's right.
Which
and,
like totally snuck up on me. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I saw that we had some quotes about from the new hotshot commissioner, Brett Yormark, talking about being the best and the deepest conference in the land and blah, 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 stuff like that.
Brett.
Yeah. I mean, I do believe he could be creating a nice conference from a basketball standpoint, but
yeah, well,
and that's his bailiwick. That's his thing.
It is the best basketball conference in the country, and that's not even like, it's
the
a
school
hell of a
they've
conference.
brought in and the competition they can offer. It's outstanding. But at Media Day was, of course, all the head coaches, including Oklahoma State's own Mike Gundy, who we know is a man and is 40. He's now much older than 40.
Mm-hmm.
But he brought with him Ollie Gordon, his running back who had just gotten a DUI.
Whoops.
And for one, it's interesting that he essentially thinks that bringing him to Media Day is part of a punishment. But before we get any further into Gundy's decision, let's hear what Gundy had to say on Ollie Gordon at Media Day.
So I looked it up on my phone. What would be the legal limit? Like in Oklahoma is 0.08 and Ollie was 0.1. So I looked it up and it was based on body weight. Not to get into the legal side of it, but I thought really 2 or 3 beers or 4. I'm not justifying what Ollie did. I'm telling you what decision I made. Well, I thought I've probably done that 1,000 times in my life.
Of course you
did. And I, it's just fine. So I got lucky. People get lucky. Ollie made a decision that he wished he could have done better. But when I talked to Ollie, I told him, I said, you're lucky you got out light because you make a lot of money.
Yeah, you got off light because your coach isn't doing anything to you.
Yeah, dude, that's an awkward.
And the fact that he immediately is jumping to pulling out his phone and looking at what the punishment should be for the various like decimal. I mean, listen, I would concede that 0.1 against 0.08. Yeah, he missed it by 25%. That's not, he wasn't plaster, but it's not great either. And the bottom line is you can't do that. And he wasn't just having a couple beers and going home. There was half a bottle of vodka and half a bottle of tequila in the passenger seat, open
container.
So
like, this is really poor form. And by the way, Mike Gundy, if you listen to that clip, Mike Gundy's like, I've done that 1,000 times. First off, that sounds terrible. He tried to go back and change. Listen to that clip again, because Mike Gundy tried to go back and clarify. He goes, no,
I think what he's saying is I've had 3 or 4 beers hundreds of times and felt okay.
He's saying that like, I was talking. Mike Gundy tried to clarify, saying that he's talking about I've made hundreds of poor decisions. No, Mike Gundy is literally saying I've done this 1,000 times.
I think he has. Yeah.
And look, as a head coach, this is incredibly poor form.
Well, Will had
it really is kind of shocking.
Will had more to this quote as well, and I know there were other elements more than just the audio that we played that he basically was saying, well, I'm not going to hurt the rest of the team by suspending Ollie because it would hurt the team to lose their star running back. I mean, it's not fair to those guys who didn't get a DUI. That's not how accountability works, though. Like, I'm sorry if your best salesperson who rakes in all the revenue for your company, gets popped for a DUI. You don't say, well, that'll hurt the company too much, so we can't. I don't know. It's just, obviously, it's a different world. That analogy may not hold the most water, but I feel like deflecting it into, well, we're not going to hurt the rest of the program on Ollie's account. I'm like, what? How is that your defense?
Look, it's just, and then you go into I'm not defending what Ollie did. Yeah, you are. And then you're saying you've done it 1,000 times. And despite you trying to go back and clarify, you're literally saying you've done it 1,000 times. And whether you have or haven't, which by the way, I'm sure you have, lots of people have, the idea of someone getting a DUI and then your response is, well, I should have gotten a DUI 1,000 times too. Boy, as a head coach, I just don't think he can do it. Like it's incredibly poor form. But Mike Gundy
he does whatever he wants.
He does whatever he wants down there. And the fact that like your first game of the year for Oklahoma State, by the way, is South Dakota State. Like,
you don't need him.
No,
just have some. Even if you're like, hey, not a big deal. You play Arkansas the second week. I get it. Like. Suspend him for South Dakota State.
Suspend him for a half against South Dakota State.
But
to try to learn his lesson.
You make a lot of money and it's not a big deal. I mean,
that's textbook enabling.
And you're trying to justify his blood alcohol content. It's
The fact that he immediately went to the technicalities of the BAC, I was like, really? That's the first thing?
You had 2 open bottles of liquor, man.
He's also wrong on the technicalities. Ollie Gordon is 20, and he's nowhere near 21. So the actual legal limit is 0.02. So if you get pulled over and you're under 21 and you blow like a 0.01, you might be okay. Depends on the situation. Because remember, 0.08, that's when everyone is legally drunk. Like the officer, if you blow a 0.05 and the officer thinks that you're dangerous behind the wheel, you can still get a DUI. Like that can still go down.
You can get a DUI under anything. Like it,
right?
You can fail sobriety tests and all that. It just I'm not in here to try to legislate what should or shouldn't be a DUI. You just, as a head coach, there's a responsibility, and you got to have some balls. And every now and then, it takes suspending your best player, especially when week 1 is South Dakota State.
It could, and that's the thing. It'd be a Mickey Mouse suspension. It wouldn't be anything. It's not like your rival game coming up.
It's a pretty slimy.
It's
a pretty slimy thing to do.
Do you want the quote?
Yeah, let's hear it, Ortner.
He's going to play, Gundy said. I might make him carry the ball 50 times in the first game, but he's going to play. We have 68 employees in our building and 139 other players. My job now in the business world that we're in is to make decisions for everybody. He's going to go through enough that's really going to be some sort of punishment, right or wrong. Either way, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a slimy thing to do.
And he also thought bringing him to media day and forcing him to face the music was punishment as well.
Yeah, I just, it's a bad beat. And yes, someone said on here that this happens all the time when people leave golf courses and bars. Absolutely it does. And there's repercussions when you get caught doing it. I mean, honestly, it's the truth. Most of the time people get a DUI. That's not the first time that they've ever done it, but there are repercussions to that. And so to have someone get caught and then your response is, I don't know, he's a really good player, so I really don't care because I've done this too. Like I said, I just think there's leadership, and then there's whatever Mike Gundy's doing, and I think it's a really, really poor look because what happens when the next guy? What?
I had that same question. What about when your third string outside linebacker does it and you want to set him to set a time?
So he was a 1.1 and a 1 point or a 0.11 and a 0.10. So if it's 0.13, is that better? Like where's my line here of demarcation? Like wherein lies what's suspendable and what's not? So what if I'm 0.11, but I'm swerving over the road? What if I crash my car? So we're now just kind of legislating the result of it. I don't know. It just seems it seems a pretty crappy way to go about leading a team if you're Mike Gundy. When, like I said, you're staring at a really easy thing to do, and that's just a cheesy 1-game suspension against a team that you don't need him for. Set a precedent. And not have this be a thing for your program. But again, Mike does his own thing and always has, and I guarantee he's not apologetic about it. Mike Gundy takes that approach of I don't give a rip.
Yep.
So,